Hello, everyone. It is my great pleasure to be part of this year's symposium about how neuroscientists can tackle the climate crisis. I am originally a neuroscientist, but in this symposium, I'm speaking as a member of the Sustainability and Environmental Action Group, which is a special interest group of the OHBM. And I will tell you something about how we can reduce the climate costs of the OHBM and about our vision for a more sustainable meeting. And you will also get a first glimpse into our soon-to-be published paper, where all of these people here contributed. But first of all, why should we even reduce carbon emissions? Probably most of you know these warming stripes. They were designed by Ed Hawkins, and they show the variation in global temperature from a reference period. And you can very simply see that it's getting hotter and hotter. And this is also shown in the newest IPCC report, where they show again that we are in the warmest multi-century period in more than 100,000 years. And the CO2 concentration hasn't been that high in the last 3 million years. So what is the IPCC? It's a body of the UN. It's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And it releases reports where hundreds of scientists work on. And these reports are a review of scientific evidence related to climate change. And why should we really worry about the global temperature increase? Because it's not simply getting warmer. It also means that sea levels will rise, and they will rise about 0.5 to 1 meters by 2100. And we know that a lot of people are actually living close by the sea. And it is, for example, estimated that by 2050, so in only 30 years or 28 years, up to 13.3 million Bangladeshis may become displaced due to climate change. And what we are already seeing and will continue seeing is a rise in extreme weather events. For example, what we see in India at the moment, and this heat wave in India usually occurs every 300 years, and it is estimated now to occur every 3 years. And approximately 3.3 to 3.6 billion people are highly vulnerable to climate change. So this is a really important topic, but you could now ask, why should we actually reduce carbon emissions? And that is because if we look at the cumulative greenhouse gas emissions, we see that North America and Europe, they emitted most of the CO2 that is currently in our atmosphere. So it is really and we know that members of the OHBM come mostly from the Northern Hemisphere. So it is really our responsibility to reduce the emissions. And to prevent even worse scenarios and tipping points from where there is no return, we have to drastically cut back our emissions now. And that is also what is shown again in the latest IPCC report. So to limit warming to 2 degrees or even to 1.5 degrees, we really have to start cutting back emissions now. And where we are, or on the path we are at the moment, this is the red path, we are still emitting more greenhouse gas every year. So we are far away from actually cutting back our emissions globally. But as I said, to prevent even worse scenarios, we have to do it because it's affecting people in the here and now. And we also have to change something now, because literally in these circumstances, delay means death. It really means death for a lot of people. And this is a citation by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, because we are running out of ways to adapt to the climate crisis. And this is also what the new IPCC report shows. And importantly, individuals with high socioeconomic status, and I think that most of us are individuals with high socioeconomic status, they contribute disproportionately to emissions and have the highest potential for emission reductions as citizens, investors, consumers, role models, and professionals. So if we now look at our own data, how much did we even emit on past conference? So first of all, it's clear that travel to a conference is the single biggest CO2 equivalent emitter. It it emits around 91 to 96 of total emissions. And if we now look at our past conferences, we emitted a lot. So we emitted only by aviation between 8,800 and 14,200 tons per conference. And 14,200 tons are as much as 23,800 Bangladeshis emit per year, to put it into a context. And we also see that the CO2 emissions per person vary a lot. And this mostly depends on the number of super long-haul flights that have to be taken to go to a conference. For example, to Honolulu, everybody had to take a super long-haul flight to attend. And the total emissions depend on the number of people and the percentage of super long-haul flights. And that location matters. It is clear that location matters, and we also see it in this slide, where it's a comparison between the conference held in Singapore and in Rome. We see that in Singapore, on average, 5 tons of CO2e per person were emitted, and in Rome, it was only, still a lot, over 3.1 tons per person. And this is because to Rome, a lot of people could travel by taking short-haul flights or car, bus, and trains. And these 45% of people who didn't have to take super long-haul or long-haul flights, they only caused 6% of total emissions, while the other 45% of attendees who had to take super long-haul flights, that means flights over 8,000 kilometers, they were responsible for 88% of total emissions. And we see that the location does matter in terms of environmental consideration, but it also matters in terms of inclusivity and diversity. And Park will also tell us a little bit more about that. But we see that most of our attendees come from the Northern Hemisphere, but that also the total number of attendees varies depending on the location, but that also the percentage of where people come from varies depending on the location. And people choose to attend or not to attend a conference based on the location. So how near or far the conference is has a large impact on people's choices to attend or not to attend. And why people choose to not attend can also have several reasons, of course. It's environmental considerations, but also visa problems, just higher costs if you have to take a long-haul flight and have to stay longer, and other things such as care work, for example. And this already brings me to my next point, why hybrid is so important for us. When we look at the emissions again, we see that if only 1/3 of the people who otherwise would take super long-haul flights, if they attend online, we already cut emissions by 1/3. But also when we look at inclusivity and diversity, there is really no way around hybrid, and we really have to improve the hybrid offering. And it also has been shown that hybrid increases total attendance and diversity, and you are very welcome to discuss with us the future of the OHBM in the open science room on Thursday, the 23rd, I think in the very morning at 8 a.m., if I'm not mistaken. And I won't discuss with you now all the alternative conference models there are, but I quickly want to jump into the hybrid multi-hub option, because we as a CS6 think that this could be the best option for the OHBM. Multi-hub means that the location doesn't take place in one single location, but there are different hubs, for example, 3 hubs on different continents. And there is also a hybrid option. And that means that we nearly cut all of the super long-haul flights, but people can still meet in person, or they can also attend online. This might even end with a higher attendance overall. It also impacts inclusivity, and it cuts emissions by a staggering 80%, as you can see here. So if you ask yourself now, what can I do about the climate crisis? I think the most crucial part is to really change something on a systems level. So join forces is actually also the most fun part, because you can, of course, also join our team. The CSIC, we have 3 different working groups, but of course you can also join other groups. For example, Scientists for Future. You can also establish your own environmental action group at your university, for example, or your research center, or just join one if there is already one, and really demand action from policymakers. And on an individual scale, the highest impact is really to reduce mobility. So if you are still flying, cut back on flying, because this has, as I said, the highest impact. Also, to live car free for 1 year saves 2.5 tons of CO2 emissions already. And what is also really important is to talk about the climate crisis. Talk with friends and family, and act as a role model and multiplier. Because climate science and related fields really impact all other fields, and they impact in general life on this planet. And they impact us already, as we see, our children, also the way we live and the way we will still be able to do our own research. And the climate science community is publishing warning after warning. We are all seeing these IPCC reports, but I somehow have the feeling that not even most of us fellow scientists, we seem to care. But we actually need to know better, because we as scientists should really understand the facts, and we should act as role models. And it's also stated in the IPCC report that collective action as part of social or lifestyle movements underpins system change. And the transition pathways and changes in social norms often start with pilot experiments led by dedicated individuals and niche groups. And important for us, middle actors, professionals, experts, and regulators play a crucial, albeit underestimated and underutilized role in establishing low carbon standards and practices. So thanks a lot for listening, and I hope you also enjoy the other talks.